Hello beautiful people, welcome back to our beta version. Today I want us to talk about the 4% rule, which is a retirement withdrawal strategy that has been both praised and criticized over 30 years. Whether you are a young person who is planning to retire early, maybe you are on your financial freedom journey and you would like to retire early, or you are a young person who has a parent that is about to retire, or a parent who has recently retired, or perhaps you are somebody who is close to retirement and you are planning how you are going to do things, or you have just recently retired, the 4% rule guides you on how you are going to withdraw your money while you are retired. So what is the 4% rule? Back in 1994, a financial planner named William Bengen or Bingen, whatever the pronunciation is, actually asked the question, how much money can retirees actually withdraw from the retirement savings without running out of money? And after studying so much historical data dating back to the 1920s, he actually came up with an answer which is 4%. 4% is the percentage that retirees can safely withdraw from their retirement savings without running out of money. And here is how it works. On year one of your retirement, you are withdrawing 4% from your total portfolio that you have invested. And then from the second year onwards, you are withdrawing 4% plus an adjustment for inflation for that year. So let's say that you have retired with 1 million in investments. On your first year of retirement, you are only withdrawing your 4%, which is 40,000 for the year. Then in year two, you are withdrawing your 4%, which is the 40,000, plus an amount adjusted for inflation. So if inflation in year two is 5%, then you are going to withdraw a total of 42,000. It's the 40,000, which is the 4%, plus the 5% for inflation, which is 2,000. Then you are withdrawing a 42,000. And then on year three, if inflation is at 6%, then again you have your 4%, which is the 40,000, plus an amount adjusted for a 6% inflation. So every year you actually look at how much is inflation so that you top up that amount on top of your initial 4% that you are withdrawing for the year. And here is the formula that you use to actually figure out how much do you need for retirement. You take your annual expenses and you multiply those by 25. And you might be wondering, where is the 25 now coming from if we are talking about a 4%? If you take 1 and you divide it by 4%, it will give you 25. So that is where the 25 is coming from. So whatever your annual expenses are, you multiply it by 25, then you will get how much money you actually need for your retirement. For example, if your annual expenses are 300,000 rands or 300,000 Namibia dollars, you will need 7.5 million, because that is now 300,000 multiplied by 25 is giving you 7.5 million. That is the amount of money that you are going to need in retirement if your annual expenses are 300,000. So like I always say, the number that you need in retirement is different from person to person, because we all have different annual expenses. For someone, it's 100,000. For another person, it's a 300. For another person, it's a 500. So whatever it is different for each person based on their annual expenses. And it's important to mention that with this 4% rule, it was actually calculated for a retirement period of 30 years. So it does not actually take into account people who are retiring early and people who are retiring late. So it was based on a calculation of a retirement period of 30 years. If you are new here, my name is Les, and on this channel I talk about personal finances as well as wholesome living. So if that is the kind of content that you are looking for, you are definitely in the right place, and I'm happy to have you here. With that said, have you ever actually asked yourself, how much money will I need in retirement? Has that question ever crossed your mind? Whatever age you are, whether you are in your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, or your 50s, have you actually at one point in your life sat down and asked yourself, how much money do I need in retirement? Because that is a very important question that all of us actually have to ask ourselves. It doesn't matter at what age you are. The earlier actually you can ask that question, the better. Because because you need a lot of years for you to actually plan and put money aside for your retirement. Those numbers for retirement, they are not small numbers. We don't want to be in a situation whereby you don't plan properly for your retirement when your kids are supposed to be out there thriving and building their own lives. Now they have to look after you because you have not planned properly for your retirement. So if you have not already asked yourself that question, today ask yourself, how much do I actually need for retirement? And be honest with yourself. So here's a practical example of how using the 4% rule actually looks like in real life. Let me say there are 3 people who are retiring today, whether it's in Namibia or in South Africa. And I always say that because we have so much in common. Now, when it comes to retirement, we have 3 examples. We have one person who is having a modest retirement. The second one is having a comfortable retirement. And the third one is having a bit of more luxury in terms of their retirement. The first scenario is that this person needs 20,000 a month to live off in retirement. So that means for the year, they need 240,000. That is the amount of money they need to be withdrawing from their retirement savings every single year. And if you take that amount of annual expenses and you multiply it by 25, then it will give you a 6 million. So on a monthly expenses of 20,000, you will need 6 million to retire comfortably and withdraw comfortably from that money without you running out of money. On a comfortable retirement, we are looking at somebody whose expenses are 35,000 a month. And if you multiply that by 12 months, you are getting 420,000, which that person will be needing every single year. And for annual expenses of 420,000, you will need a portfolio of 10.5 million for you to be able to safely withdraw that 420,000 every year without running out of money. Your portfolio needs to be 10.5 million. And the third scenario is a person who is having a luxury retirement, and this is a person whose monthly expenses are 60,000, which translates to 720,000 a year. In a year, this person needs a 720,000 for them to withdraw from their investments. And for that type of retirement, that person will need a portfolio of 18 million, and that is not small money. So if you want to survive on 60,000 a month while you are retired, you are looking at having a portfolio of 18 million set aside for your retirement, and you will safely be able to withdraw that 720,000 every single year without you running out of money. Now these numbers are showing you that we need quite a substantial amount of money in retirement. And if you have not already started planning your retirement in your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, this is the time for you to play catch up so that you really start being serious about your retirement. And like I said, nowadays we have people who are planning to retire early. Even when you are planning to retire early, you need to have this number. You need to have your freedom number. You need to have your retirement number. How much money will you need to survive from? So at whatever age you are planning to retire, you need to calculate your annual expenses that you are anticipating to have while you are retired and figure out how much money do you need in investments that you are going to survive from without you running out of money. It's a very important question for all of us. And if you are in your 20s listening to this video, this is the best time to actually start retirement planning. We do not want you to wait until you are 58 years old. Then you are running around like a headless chicken. You do not know even where to start, where to touch. The years are already gone and you don't have anything in retirement savings or investments. Especially for people who work for the government. It's very easy for people to just say, I have my government pension. But that government pension, if you are lucky, maybe you will get a 2 million. Do you know how long 2 million will last you? For you to survive every year on that 2 million, your expenses monthly has to be less than 6,000. That is how much you need to survive from. But looking at your current income and what you are accustomed to, are you going to be able to survive on 6,000 a month? Is it realistic, especially for my people from northern Namibia? Is it realistic for you to survive on that 2 million pension that you are getting from the government, of which for you to survive on that you need your expenses monthly to be less than 6,000? It's good that you are working for the government and the government is giving you that pension, but that pension is not enough. You need to have other retirement savings and retirement investments. In the absence of that, unfortunately, you are going to run out of money so fast, and it becomes so sad when you run into people who have dedicated so many years of their life to service, but then they have not planned properly and they have not taken care of their money, and then they run out of money, and it's a sad sight to see. So to avoid that, let's plan. If you are in your 20s, you are in your 30s, you are in your 40s, you are in your 50s, let's plan. At whatever age, we need to plan properly so that by the time you get to your retirement age, whether you are planning to retire at 45, at 50, 55, 60, 65, whatever it is, have a plan. And that plan should not just be your employer pension, because your employer pension will never be enough. You need investments outside of that so that then you can add all of it up to make up your 6 million or your 10 million or your 18 million, depending on your annual expenses. So when do you adjust this rule of 4%? You adjust to 3% or less if you are somebody who is retiring before the age of 50. Some of us want to retire before that age, so we might need to adjust our retirement withdrawal from 4% to actually 3%. You also want to adjust down to 3% if most of your portfolio is very conservative. Let me say majority of your portfolio is in bonds, then you might want to consider actually adjusting down to 3%. Same goes with if you are retiring during a market peak or when there is uncertainty, you also want to adjust down to 3%. And also if you do not have any other sources of income. Like the example that I gave earlier of somebody who is employed by the government and only want to depend on their pension from the government, this is now where you also need to adjust down, because the 4% might not work. You need to really adjust it down so that you can work with what you have. So those are some of the conditions that actually get you to adjust down from the initial 4% to you actually doing 3% or less. And with that said, every single year you actually have to check on your investments and really look at, do I need to adjust up or do I need to adjust down? Because every single year will not look the same. There will be years where the markets are doing so well and you might be in a position to actually say, then maybe I draw even a 5.5%. But then there will be times where the markets are really not doing that well and you need to adjust down, maybe to 3% or maybe to 2.5 or 2.7%. So you have to keep an eye. Where are you invested? Keep an eye on where your investments are held so that you are able to make adjustments as needed. And if you are lucky to have a financial advisor or a financial planner, then you also need to consult that professional very often who is helping you with your finances so that they can check for you. Things are looking like this, perhaps we go in this direction. And now things are changing to this, then maybe we go in a different direction. It helps to have professionals that can actually assist you with some of these things, especially when it comes to markets and all those things that you might not always understand well for yourself. It helps to consult. But when you do that, it's always suggested you go to somebody who charges you a flat rate. Not somebody who charges you a percentage, but somebody who says, my consultation with you is 3,000. And you pay the 3,000, they assist you, you move on. Next time you come, it's another 3,000, the story is done. Instead of somebody who is saying, I only want 4% of your portfolio. We don't say yes to those kind of things, because that 4% over the years, it compounds. It's money that you are giving away that you need for yourself. So always go with a professional who is fee-based, who is charging you a specific amount of money, not somebody who is saying, I want a percentage of your portfolio. As a takeaway from this video, here are some of the action steps that I want you to consider moving forward so that you can start looking into planning for your retirement if you have not already started. But if you have started and there's something here that you have not done yet, you can equally take what you need and leave the rest. The first step is for you to calculate your annual expenses. Really picture yourself at the age that you want to retire. Maybe you want to retire at the age of 50. At that age of 50, how will your annual expenses look like? Will you be paying for a house? Will you be paying for a car? Will you be paying for university for your kids? What will be happening? You need to really have a clear picture of what might be your expenses at that age. Maybe you don't pay for a house anymore. Maybe you don't have any debt. Maybe you just need to worry about your food, your toiletries, and maybe you want to travel a bit and what and what and what. Put more detail and be honest with yourself. How will things look like at that age? Be realistic. Forecast your life, whether it's 20 years from now or 10 years or whatever years from now. Really have that and calculate your annual expenses. Step 2 is for you to multiply your annual expenses by 25 so that you can get your freedom number or so that you can get your retirement number. So once you have figured out that maybe your annual expenses when you are at your retirement age of 50, for example, maybe you will only need 200,000 a year, then you multiply that by 25 so that you get the number that you need to work towards. Whether that number is a 3 million, is a 10 million, is a 20 million, whatever it is, that will be your number that you are actually setting targets for. The third step is for you to check where are you now? Currently, where are you? And how much do you have in your retirement savings and investments at the moment? Is it a 40,000? Is it a million? Is it a 3 million? How much do you have currently that is put aside for that future self? And be honest. And from that, you will then take the number that you got in the previous step, remove this one that you have, then whatever is left is now what you need to work towards. Are you left with a 5 million that you need to work towards? Or are you left with a 2 million? Are you left with what? Really be honest in terms of your calculations so that you have a clear picture. This is where I am now and this is where I need to be. So the difference between these two numbers is the number, my new number now that I need to work towards. And if you are already retired, look at the 4% rule. Calculate your things according to the 4% rule and look at whether it can work for you while you are already retired, and whether maybe you can use it but you adjust it either down or you adjust it up. Really look at what can work for your situation. And the other thing that you want to do is to actually be much more flexible when it comes to your retirement plan, because life happens, things can go wrong, especially when it comes to the stock market. We do not know when the next crash is. So if the market crash happens today, will you be okay? What will happen? And maybe to shield yourself, you want to keep money that is now for at least 2 to 3 years, either in cash or in government bonds. You don't put everything in the stock market because you do need to have some cash in case things go wrong in the stock market. You don't have to sell low for you to live. You actually need to have some money in cash or in bonds where you know you have stability also in terms of payment dates and you can rely on that. So always plan that anything can happen in the future and run all the possible scenarios so that you can look at, will I be able to survive? So that you plan and arm yourself properly. So as you can see from this video, the 4% rule is not perfect and it's also not a guarantee, but it's a good guideline to tell you how to plan properly for retirement, how to plan properly for freedom. Because the same calculation that you do when you want to retire early or when you want to reach financial freedom is the same one that you are actually using for retirement planning. So basically, it's money that you want to use for your future. Whether you are retiring or not, it's up to you. But if you are retiring, you really need to be honest with your expenses and plan properly so that you do not run out of money and then you become a burden for your family, and that will not be a good thing for you or for your family. And you also don't want your kids and your relatives to resent you because now you have become a financial burden for them. So please do plan properly, and if you are about to retire, please don't use your retirement savings to buy that latest car that you want or to buy a house or whatever it is, unless unless you really have more than enough, do not withdraw that money and use it on things that you might not even need. So really check properly and plan and preserve your money, because nowadays people are living very long. Imagine you live up to 90, but you retired and you only had the 4 million. That 4 million will not reach you at the age of 90. Maybe by the time you are in your 70s already, that money is already finished. So you have to really plan properly. If you are blessed with a long life, will you be able to survive longer on the amount of money that you are planning on? Really look at if you are going to have a retirement of 30 years or 40 years or whatever it is, will you be okay? And if you found this video helpful, please share it with somebody who is either about to retire or somebody who has retired recently. Also, if you have a parent who is looking into retirement or who is recently retired, it can assist. But for yourself also, share it with your friends. It doesn't matter at what age you are, we all have to start planning our retirement. Whether you are in your 20s, 30s or 40s, you need to plan for retirement. Retirement is planned in advance. You don't plan when you have 5 years to retire. Then you find yourself running around and being tired, overworking yourself when your body can barely keep up. We want to avoid that. The earlier and the younger you start planning, the better for you and the richer you will be when you retire, because now you have more time in the market. You have a lot of years where your money was growing. You will retire with much more money and you will not be stressed. So don't worry if you are only 25 years old or 28 years old. The best time to start anything money related is in your 20s. But the next best time is whatever age you are finding yourself in. And with that said, my name is Les and here is to Achieving Financial Freedom Together. And I'll see you over here.